I'm Nick Snow, watching Government for Oil and Gas Journal in Washington, D.C. Railroads and their regulators on both sides of the Canadian-U.S. border have continued to address oil-by-rail transportation safety issues after an accident with 72 crude-bearing tank cars near Lac Mégantic in Quebec on July 6th. Early that morning, an apparently unattended Montreal, Maine and Atlantic Railway freight train with 72 Bakken crude-bearing tanker cars headed for an eastern Canadian refinery lost control and derailed, causing explosions and a fire which took 47 lives and extensively damaged property. Canada's Transportation Safety Board completed its on-site examination on August 1st, and its investigation moved into the analysis phase. Next steps include analyzing metallurgical samples, damage records, and photographs to determine the crash-worthiness of the tank cars involved, examining selected wreckage in the laboratory and testing brakes, wheel sets, and other components, and reviewing the locomotive data recorder's data to validate speed, air brake reaction, and other information. Investigators also plan to process, analyze, and compare numerous fluid samples, quote, in order to verify the properties of the petroleum product in these tank cars, end quote, TSB said in a statement. This analysis is being carried out to help investigators determine why the oil created such a fierce fire that night, it continued. We need to be thorough, and it will take months, emphasized Donald Ross, the investigator in charge. This investigation remains a top priority for the TSB. The U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Railroad Administration issued an emergency order and safety advisory August 2nd in response to the accident. The order, which all U.S. railroads must implement within 30 days, stated no train or vehicles carrying specified hazardous materials can be left unattended on a main line or side track outside a yard or terminal unless specifically authorized. It also said all employees responsible for securing such trains or vehicles must let dispatchers know the number of handbrakes applied, the train or vehicle's tonnage and length, the track's grade and terrain features, any relevant weather conditions, and the type of equipment being secured. A dispatcher or other qualified railroad employee will have to verify that the securement meets the railroad's requirements, FRA's order said. The safety order, which it issued with the U.S. Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, outlined additional recommendations. U.S. freight railroads will implement the order to improve transportation of crude, ethanol, and other hazardous materials, Association of American Railroads President Edward R. Hamburger responded. The industry also will review its own operating practices to find more ways to enhance safety, he added. Railroads are always looking for ways to make this nation's rail network safer for our employees, our communities, and the environment, Hamburger said. When the FRA held a public hearing August 28th on issues arising from the incident, witnesses representing U.S. chemical manufacturers said it is equally important to address accident prevention and response as it is to consider redesigning rail tanker cars. But another speaker urged U.S. President Barack Obama to fully use his executive authority to make rail shippers of crude oil and other hazardous materials disclose cargo's volumes and chemical properties and use routes that avoid populated areas. Any new regulations will take months to develop, but debate on the next steps has clearly begun. That's Watching Government for this week. In Washington, I'm Nick Snow for Oil and Gas Journal.